So we're growing at a fast rate of speed where it started going, then it was like, okay, we got one, and starting this year, really, we had one van. Now we've got five vans. Four brand new ones, and pretty much every 3 to 4 months I bought another one. So we're really cruising right now, and the people are starting to come faster. The jobs are coming faster. They're getting bigger. So it's definitely a rolling ball, and it's picking up. So
I love the fact that your momentum is building, but also the fact that you're not riding on your laurels. Like, it's one thing to say, oh, we made it, we're good, and now we can top off. But the fact that you're like, every 3 to 5 months, I'm buying another van shows that you're trying to scale and that it's meeting the demand that's currently there. Because if your phone's constantly ringing off the hook, if your teams are being trained, if your sales process is being improved, then up is the only way to go at this point.
Hello, 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 and welcome back to yet another episode of Electripreneur Secrets, the Electrician's Podcast. I'm your host, Clay Newmeyer, almost choked on it that time. With me, as always, my esteemed co-host, Joseph Lucani, and we are the Electripreneurs, just a couple of master electricians with business addictions here and ready to serve on yet another one of our daily freemium coach calls right here on your favorite podcast channel, or joining us live in the Facebook group. And this is episode 239 in our $1 million launch series. How that loop method, as we've been talking about, is going to free us on this journey. And today, actually, to your surprise, potentially, we've actually got a special guest, another one of our clients who's just rejoined us recently, Dan Totten. He rejoined us in the last quarter of 2023 after spending a bit of the first quarter of 2023, kind of took the summer off. We didn't think he was doing much, but he's been doing a ton. And he himself managed this $1 million launch first year. So who better to have in this perfect timing for the loop method? Joseph, how are you doing today, my brother?
I'm doing amazing. It's one of those days where really you can't ask for better when it comes down to serving at the highest level. And I'm just grateful to be doing with you every single day. And plus, being able to talk about Dan, I mean, the guy's a solid individual. I always enjoy seeing him in class. He's nothing but a pleasure to work with. So I think it's very fitting we bring him in today. How about you today?
100%.
How you holding up?
Doing fantastic, man. Client interviews are my favorite. I love getting someone else in on the engagement and the conversation. And really, I mean, I say client interview, but it's more like a team, this community we've built. And
Mm-hmm.
I just want to take a moment to introduce this loop method again on the podcast, because it's something we're going to focus on for an episode or two here in how
Mm-hmm.
we would launch this business in like some of the ways Dan has. So the loop method and the curiosity around that, can we just speak to that for one moment, Joe?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. Let's dive into it.
So, in all the trainings we've been doing, the sales process development and training that Joseph's brought, right, from his $1.3 million van days to now training others to do the same and even better here soon, right? Maybe
Mm-hmm.
Dan Totten's the guy. This loop method, that's the 7 pieces that we've extracted from this process and put it ahead to figure out what we offer. And that, coupled with the organic marketing, has created this effect, Joe, where customers keep on coming and playing again.
Mm-hmm.
The business becomes sustainable, and slow season can become something that we embrace and we look forward to as we get
Mm-hmm.
to serve our customers again at the highest level, man. And nothing's made me more excited than launching this loop method with you, brother.
It's truly been a pleasure as well. And it's a personal win, in my opinion, when we get to talk about removing the slow season, because it's one of those big bad boogeymen that so many people don't want to speak about, where they're like, oh, well, things get slow and well, you just do commercial. Oh, we'll do new construction. But using our method, we're able to remove the slow season to where not only is it now continuously profitable for you, but you can even plan your business as certain stop points, because now that you know your pricing, now that you know your offer, now that you know all these other factors that go into it, you can take control and meet the day rather than have the day meet you.
Whew, that's a hot mic. Speaking of hot mics, what do you say we introduce Dan?
I would absolutely love that. No
All
better
right,
time than the present.
here we go. Dan, are you with us? Come on, Dan. There he
hey,
is.
hey, how's it going,
Dan,
guys?
Hey,
DT
buddy.
Electric, doing great, brother. Happy to have you on the show. Thanks so much for joining us, man. How are you doing today?
Hey, we're doing good. We're off to, well, I guess it's almost towards the end of the week, but it's been a great week so far. Everyone's doing well, so it's great.
Mhm.
Nice, man. As we mentioned in the back here before the show, it's kind of perfect timing to bring you in and fitting because we've been doing this $1 million launch series and how we would start over today. And it seems you've done much of what we would aim to do in having your own $1 million first year. So, like huge congratulations. B, I can't wait to dive into this with you, man. Right off the bat, could you see this coming for yourself, let's say end of 2022 when you were starting, or what were your feelings then?
To be honest, when I started this and I was thinking, when I start this electrical company, I'll probably be just by myself. Who knows, maybe in a
Mhm.
year or two down the road, I'll get some help, but we'll just kind of see how it goes, that kind of thing. And then once I realized my phone was blowing up quite a bit right off the bat, I was thinking, I'm going to have to figure out a way to manage all this because it was just really, really hectic. So I'm glad I reached out when I did because I think I would have been in a really big mess right now if I didn't. I know I definitely wouldn't be nearly as close as I am right now. I've got a lot of goals for this coming year, but as far as the first year, I think we're right on track. So it's good.
Awesome,
Gonna
man.
be happy for you, man.
Was electrical in your blood, or why'd you get into this? Why'd you get into the electrical business in the first place?
My dad's been an electrician since he was 18. He's now in his 50s. So he's been an electrician for over 30 years. So that's a big thing. He's always been commercial, industrial kind of projects. And, growing up through high school, I wasn't exactly sure what I wanted to do, but I knew I didn't want to go to college. And he's like, oh, electrical, it's a rough trade. I don't know if you want to get into it, but I always went on, a couple side jobs here or there at the neighbor's house or wherever. And I was like, this is something I really like. So I pretty much got into the apprenticeship at 18 as quick as I could and then
Mhm.
went through it and got my card basically. So
Very cool, man.
I love
Very
that.
cool. Yeah.
If I can touch on something, I just feel like it's so cool that you got an exposure early in the trade. Because for so many of us, whether it was you don't have a family member that's handy or you don't have a mentor, it could have been a lot harder for you to get exposure to it. And nothing's worse than jumping into a trade you don't love. But the fact that you had that ability of being like, I can take on a project on the side, I can see that I like it. Oh, I do like it. And I really feel like that passion for the trade is one of the reasons why you're so successful at what you do. Because every time you and I have a conversation, it's really, I can hear the passion and I can hear the commitment to the highest level. And I really think that's something I respect about you.
I appreciate that.
You're welcome, brother.
There's another twist in this, in that your background, you actually came up in the union. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. So where we're at right here, it's kind of a split, but basically he was through the union when I came into it. I said, that's what I want to get into. And from a business standpoint, that could definitely change a lot of things. There's a lot of minimums as far as like pay scales and different things like that, which in our specific area is generally quite a bit higher than if you were non-union. So it definitely changes a lot of different things as far as health benefits and pay.
Right.
Hmm.
Yeah. And your area again, if you wouldn't mind telling people?
Oregon area. So the nearest city to us would be that's a big city would be Portland. We're probably our shop is based, about 40 minutes from there, but that's a pretty big area where we do a lot of work. So
Nice.
Nice.
And sort of hire someone, a residential service electrician, like what does that pay scale look like for a year of that employee?
As far as from a residential standpoint, our technicians right now are more commercial residential mix. But as far as from a residential standpoint, an average hour, including health benefits, they're around $65 per hour
Mhm.
for
Yeah.
a real basic one. And if you want a commercial guy, you're over $100 an hour, really. And they're if you want health benefits and everything, they're making 65 to $70 an hour on average, plus health and benefits. So it can be quite a bit.
No kidding.
Mhm.
No kidding. So with that in mind, I remember doing sort of your pricing exercise for the first time and really looking at those expenses going, wow, this rate's
Mhm.
climbing quick. Did you
Uh-huh.
ever
Yeah.
have any nerves around that and the affordability for the people in your area for your services?
When I first started, I kind of was looking at the company as far as everyone else's pricing, and that was kind of my biggest
Yeah.
downfall, I think, is I was thinking, well, what does everyone else charge? What do we charge in order to make a profit? And from a starting point, that was the really biggest part for me. It's like, hey, we need to charge this much. And I'm like, I don't know how we can physically do that. And then it started focusing on what everyone else charges, what we need to charge. And that was kind of the biggest thing. We're starting out with
Mhm.
that right on day one was a really big boost for me.
Massive. Yeah. And kudos to you for embracing it and doing the hard thing, which is to go out and try. Incredible piece. Like, so many people get stuck right there. I'm so glad you didn't, because you might not even be here to talk with us today if you hadn't,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely.
So what is the primary focus of your guys' work now? What do you guys find yourself working on most?
Residential service, I would say, generally, I mean, 90% that we deal, when we started in that, most of our guys have commercial experience, kind of commercial background. We all can do residential, but we did a lot of that. So we still have those kind of bigger projects pop up. But generally speaking, we're trying to transfer over residential service as much as possible. We still do stuff on commercial-ish jobs that are from a maintenance standpoint. We'll go back there and it's a really similar process, apartment complexes and stuff like that, which we've got good luck with, but it's something where we're slowly transferring over for sure.
Awesome, man. You said something already that I think people are dying for us to ask about. Why is your demand so high, do you think? Like, did you market a certain way? Is there something going on in Oregon, something in the water for DT Electric, or what's going on,
Mhm.
brother?
Yeah, what's interesting is when I first started, a lot of mutual friends of mine have their own construction companies, as far as like landscaping, painting companies. Any friend of mine that I've connected with that I've had the best results is like, hey, look, anyone that has their own business already is a friend of mine. Anyone that, tries to exceeds, it's one of those things where it's like, if you hang out in the sewer, you're gonna get hit with a turd. So my thing is like I like hanging out with good
Mm.
quality people that like to do work, whether they're older, younger. I just like being around successful people to find success myself. So that's something where I've tried to do. So if everyone else has a company that they're trying to grow, generally speaking, you're going to get a lot of, you know, help through that alone. And then one big thing I did is it's like, okay, well, if I have all these people that I know that own companies, well, if I recommend them, then in terms they're going to recommend me. So as far as our phones, since day one, our call volume has been way more than we could ever handle. Right now, we're starting to get to the point where it's like, okay, we're catching up, we're getting multiple install teams set up, and now we're starting to catch up with that workload a little bit. So I've
Mhm.
never paid for any advertising ever. I mean, we wrapped our vans and got matching shirts and stuff, but I've never paid for advertising, never put a sign in the ground, never tried anything farther just because our call volume is so high. And even to this day, you know, the CSR that answers all the phones, there'll be times where she's on the phone call for 4 or 5 minutes and she's like, man, by the time I got off that phone, I had 3 voicemails and I'm calling it back as quick as I can. So our call volume, it's not always like that, but start of the morning or into the afternoon, especially on a Monday or a Friday, is huge. So
You said something in the very beginning, and I didn't want to break your flow because I really love what you're saying. But there's a study that says if the 5 people that you're closest with, you end up developing their similar traits. And something I really love that you're doing is that you said, I'm going to focus regardless of their age. If they're running their own business and they've got a desire to work, I want to ally with them. And I think that's really, really important because there's a lot of people who start businesses for the wrong reasons. And as a result, they're in these situations where they try to rush or they're trying to just get to the bottom line. But it seems like you're doing the opposite, where you're focusing on people who want to work and want quality. And by referring them, they're referring you, and you're creating this reciprocal relationship that just seems to get better and better over time, as well as your habits being improved through those connections. So I see it as like this continuous loop that's improving. I just want to say, if no one else noticed it, I see it. I think that's really awesome.
I want to say it the way Dan said it. Hang out in the sewer, get hit with turds.
Yeah.
I love
I was
that,
gonna say
man.
that, yeah.
Is that something your dad kicked down by chance?
no, I'm not really sure. He was when I was going to start this thing, he was really a little bit hesitant, like, oh, you sure you want to do that? It's like, well, hey, if nothing works out, then I'll just go back to work. I mean, there's not really anything to lose here. He was a little hesitant at first. Now I think he's really happy and everything like that. But it's something where through I guess other business people, they've said that, I've a lot of close friends of mine are twice my age and they've got pretty successful companies. So that's something that I like to do. And what I found is kind of funny is by doing this training, being with you guys on a weekly basis, a lot of times I've been able to help out a lot of other people, which it doesn't necessarily electrical. We're really the only electrical, but someone's got a landscape company, does excavation, contracting, general things. There's a lot of tips and tricks that you can pass along that they're like, wow, how did you come up with that? That's insane. You're like, oh, I've just got this thing I do on a weekly basis, we're just for electricians, but I'll pass that down to them. They're like, well, that sounds like some kind of magic. So
Wow,
Mhm.
man. Okay, so before we wrap up where these leads are coming from, like, can I ask specifically, where do most of your leads come from, do you think then? Is it all that internal network that you had, or has it grown beyond that since then?
Yeah, Facebook is a really big one where we've got a lot of local groups we're in. Portland City Chat, Oregon City Chat, all of our local cities. If I just, when I first started, I said, well, I'm going to just join every single one of these. And anytime someone has a question like, hey, who's the best landscaper around? Who's the best this? Someone who I truly know is a great, gives a great service, does a, premium level service that I personally know. A lot of people I don't know in there. I don't know a good chiropractor, but I know the one down the road seems to be really good. We've done work with them. I'm going to recommend them. So if every time someone says, I need a local something, if I have either me, the CSR, someone else I know comment in there, they're doing better. They see, oh, that guy's referring me. I should refer them back. We do a project just last week, we did a project at a roofing company's thing. And they said, from now on, we're referring to you. So anytime I see a roofer, I don't know a good roofer, I had a great experience with them personally, I'm going to say, you know what? That's the roofer I'm recommending until I hear otherwise that they're not doing great. What I found is that we just built this huge tribe of, groups in the whole area. So people will call me that are 45 minutes to an hour away and they'll say, I've heard you're the best electrician in the city over here. And I'm thinking, well, I don't ever work over there, but I'm glad I don't necessarily say, well,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't agree with you, but yeah, I'm an hour away. I wouldn't consider myself local by any means, but I'm happy to go out there and help you.
Everyone needs to pause this, rewind a minute or two there, and listen to that again and again and again. The
Hmm.
marketing
Yep.
companies are never going to tell you that. Why? Because they don't make money off of it. That is 100% organic leverage. And I love the way you did that. I can't say that enough, Dan. It's absolute fire. And even in the bigger, better practice groups at the higher levels where people see so much money exiting to get enough leads, no one's
Mhm.
talking about those fundamentals that you just absolutely mic dropped in here, man. So congratulations on that intuition to stick with that
Hmm.
and to build that tribe, as you mentioned. Huge
Appreciate that.
superpower. Absolutely. Especially in $1 million launch. I mean, you were able to do that yourself in minimal effort and create massive gains.
Thanks.
Yeah, it's huge, man. Okay, so at this point, you're no longer just a one-man show. You've got a team around you. Is that right? How big is your team
Yeah.
today, a year
Yeah, so
later?
we've got an office staff with one gal in there doing that. We've got two install teams. So we've got two journeymen, one apprentice. He's kind of bouncing back and forth who could best use in that day. A lot of times we'll have all three of them on one side if it's a bigger one. And then we have one service technician that does mostly the day-to-day demand calls. And then I'm still doing sales calls at this time, but he's starting to take over those. We've got other people that are training to kind of push up that role. So three of those staff members have really been hired in the last couple months, realistically. So we're growing at a fast rate of speed where it started going. Then it was like, okay, we got one, and starting this year, really, we had one van. Now we've got five vans. Four brand new ones, and pretty much every 3 to 4 months, I bought another one. So we're really cruising right now, and the people are starting to come faster. The jobs are coming faster. They're getting bigger. So it's definitely a rolling ball and it's picking up. So
I love the fact that your momentum is building, but also the fact that you're not riding on your laurels. Like, it's one thing to say, oh, we made it, we're good, and now we can top off. But the fact that you're like, every 3 to 5 months, I'm buying another van shows that you're trying to scale and that it's meeting the demand that's currently there. Because if your phone's constantly ringing off the hook, if your teams are being trained, if your sales process is being improved, then up is the only way to go at this point. And I love the fact that you have a forward view that you're doing that.
thanks. And one interesting thing that I wouldn't have ever really thought, but I feel like everything as far as organization and how hectic it is less than it was when it was me and one other person. So the biggest thing is now I feel like as we grow and we're getting people in line a little bit better, it's less stress, less going on. It's just more is showing up for work. Okay, I've got some calls today. The CSR half the time is my boss. Okay, where am I going today? What do you want me to do today? And I'm going there doing what I need to do. The install techs are going in there. I'll help with the scheduling on, durations and
Yep.
things like that. But generally speaking, as far as the way the company is building now, a year ago it was really, really hectic. I was scramble brain. Now it's like it's very set, cut and dry. It's building and it's very easy. So,
Sounds like your mental equity is being preserved there because you don't have to think of everything. So it's almost like imagine having a fistful of sand. You have to hold the entire thing, which naturally things are going to slip through your fingers. But now you've got multiple hands holding it together, less falls through the cracks, and it's less all on you.
and as we continue to build, it's just getting better and better. So I think once we get a little bit more sales in there, okay, now we're going to need a little bit more install. The install techs are kind of being trained into sales positions a little bit farther, service sales. And then, install techs are a lot easier to come by, especially we're at right now in a union company. I can make a phone call and say, yeah, can you send me a guy? Come in there, put him in the bottom, train them, see if they're going to be a good fit, and kind of go from there. So it's really, really easy to get help where we're at. So as far as scalability, it's huge for sure.
Amazing, man. My next question was going to be based on the fact that you don't look afraid, not one bit. You don't look fearful of this, even though you're scaling, rapidly growing, rather. This is a growth point. Difference being growth still has a lot more expense to it and learning, right? Scale at some point, it's just like, okay, we're going to turn up the rheostat here, right? Or turn down rather and flow that current. But let me ask you, man, are you having trouble sleeping at night at all? Like, why do you seem so calm with this?
Yeah, there's times, but my thing is I just really like to work. So it's not a thing of like lack of sleep. Like last night it was 8 and I was like, oh, I was just sitting there not really doing anything productive. And I was like, oh, we kind of need this for the job tomorrow. I'm gonna go get it. The technician was gonna go from the shop to go get it, but I was thinking, well, if I do that, then that's gonna save him a half hour from having to go over there. So I went and did it, but not something I have to do. I just really like to work. So it's something where if if there's anything I can do to improve, I'm going to do it. I don't, work weekends or do anything too crazy or work too late or anything like that. And I take, a lot of time for myself for sure. Especially, in the summer, if there's a specific season that I want to do something, if I check out for a day or two, it doesn't really hurt anything because the schedule's so far in advance. So as far as like from a stress standpoint, there's times, once every couple months I'll go, oh man, I'm getting ready to pull my hair out. But usually by the next day, it's like, yeah, I was just overthinking it. But the problem is because I'm a little bit of a perfectionist and I don't like things to go even slightly wrong. Even if we do it at 99%, it's like, yeah, we could have just been a little bit better. We missed that one little thing. That was just not exactly the way I drew it up. And that's just, part of it, where realistically most people are probably doing it at 70% of what we're doing. So we're going above and beyond anyway. But that's just part of it. So
I gotta stop you there for a moment because what you said at the very beginning is the all-star action that someone should take. And I don't even think it was being picked up on, which was, hey, at 8 o'clock last night, I looked and said, I wasn't doing anything productive. What can I do? And that itself is an absolute all-star trait. Because if you think about it, 8 p.m., most people are turning in. They're done. They're clocking out. They've already been clocked out. And yet you're willing to get the keys, go back out, get the parts that you need so that in the morning your tech has a better start, meaning that their whole day and all their productivity and everything along it is now that much more set up for success. So the fact that you're willing to do the thing, the consistent thing, I really feel is a huge leverage to what your success is. Because being able to say, yeah, I like to work is one factor, but being able to say, I am productively working on a focused action, I think that's what's giving you the best result. And I love the fact that you're doing that. It shows a lot of character as well as diligence.
I want to add to that because there's also a balance factor, right?
Yeah.
It wasn't, oh, I've been stuck at the shop since 7 this morning. It was, I've gone home, I've rested, but I'm not doing anything. And there's this thing I could do to get ahead. It's
Exactly.
in those moments, Joe and Dan, I find myself improving my life where you start to become aware of, well, I'm about to turn on a show. Well, why? Right? It's just a rest period. But is there one more left in me? Is there something else I could do that I would enjoy that would still move the needle ahead? I got to say, I appreciate that too. Man, that's huge stuff, Dan. Thanks for sharing that. So, with this growth, you're obviously embracing it, moving ahead. What would you say, though, have been, let's say, your biggest challenges in this year then? Is it just demand, or was there anything else that kind of got in the way for you?
yeah, I guess everything's going realistically as smooth as anyone can ask for. There's small growth. There's just everything that is, learning experience. Okay, well, how can we shift this to make this a little bit better? As far as this year and coming into next year, my biggest thing is I need to just train. Where right now I'm thinking, okay, how many of these jobs can we get done? Let's get more jobs. Let's sell more jobs. Let's do more jobs. Where what I'm trying to do is not necessarily that, because that's going very well, but just from a training standpoint, I'm trying to step back just a little bit farther and really delegate, as much as possible. Where it's flowing great right now where I'm at, but it's like, well, if I'm selling these jobs and the service tech can sell those jobs, then why don't we have another service tech and then him move to sales? Something like that where I can step back a little bit farther. So training is going to be kind of my number one thing starting this year that I'm really trying to focus on. That was not necessarily a struggle from last year because it's always there. It's just something for me. I struggle with setting up the time in order to do that. So that's my thing.
For sure. Great share. Love the delegation awareness. Love the awareness of self at this point. And I did want to ask just briefly then, what is it that you do at this point then? I mean, it mentioned, sounds like you're getting more into training. Sounds like the CSR is your boss sometimes, and you're kind of the support and in the field a little bit. Are there like a half dozen things that you're doing in your business then at this point, or is it still a dozen plus hats that you're wearing?
Yeah, for me, I don't do any of the installs at all anymore. So I mean, if there was a quick thing that came up that someone really needed, I'd be happy to go do it. But generally speaking, I don't do any installs at all. If a HVAC company is like, oh man, I really need this hooked up today, and they need me to go turn some tools for a little bit, I'll do that. But pretty much I'm 100% off the tools. I look at mostly all the bigger jobs. The service tech right now is estimating up to, medium-sized jobs, and I'm trying to get it to where they can bid every job. I just, from a trust standpoint, what their skill are, a lot of times if it's like, hey, we need to bid this full home rewire, they're like, can you check this? Maybe you should look at it first. I'm not really sure. And that's one thing where all the bigger jobs, I still estimate them and happy to do that. So I'm usually driving around. A lot of times I'll set up material and things like that for jobs that I know are coming up that I estimated or the tech estimated. I'll get it set up, organized, like, okay, when you show up to the shop, we've got a pallet right here. This is all the lights. This is the plugins. This is everything very mainstream. You just go in there. It has the name on there. You grab it, you put it in the van, you go do the project. I'll do a lot of that kind of, backside things where I don't necessarily have to. All the technicians stock their own vans. Well, I'm getting a little low on this. I fill it. I don't stock any of their vans. The shop has, some normal consumable items that we use, extra panels and things like that. We have a stack of 200 amp main breaker panels. We have the big ones, the smaller ones. We've got every single size on a shelf. So it says, okay, if you need one, it's right there. There's 5 of each one sitting there, that kind of thing. So I'll, keep that stock. But from, coming into this next year, it's going to be a huge delegation period where as soon as I can get someone that can start doing those sales, I'm going to step back even farther. But even right now, I've got a van full of tools and don't really use them.
Well done, man.
How great
Really.
is that when your tools collect dust, right?
Yeah,
I love it.
absolutely. Okay. We're getting near the end of this, Dan, but top 3 things, man, that have helped you in this $1 million launch year, what you've been able to accomplish, and that you'll see leveraging going forward. If you had to say the top 3 things, what would you say, man? What's helped you?
I would say the pricing was the number one thing. The very first thing is like, okay, well, if you're going to do everything in scale and get your sales into better, well, the pricing is going to be the number one thing you're going to want to set up right off the bat. So getting the pricing set up, and then once your pricing set up, if you have the installers to do the work, well, if you need to have sales in order to get the work. So by having the sales set up there, that was a huge thing. And I guess the number one thing realistically is definitely going to be the CSR position that can allow me to get, for one, if you're one-to-one shop, being able to get off the tools there, but also from a standpoint of, okay, well, I'm off the tools already. Building from there, it's just starting to compound to where they're doing more and more and more every single day. So that's a big thing for me. But I'm just looking at, this next year, how can I get to where I don't have to schedule all the jobs that they're not exactly sure on a duration. So that's one big thing I'm trying to step into.
Yeah. And just before the show, we were also talking a bit, and I just want to highlight it if that's all right. Will you spend a couple more minutes with us?
Yeah, absolutely.
We're talking about, because as we established, you were with us for a bit in that sort of last quarter 2022, first quarter 2023. took most of the year on your own, dealing with the high demand and everything, and then came back just in this last quarter of 2023 looking for some additional clarity, some structure. And that's
Hmm.
really when the CSR started for you, right?
Mhm.
Yep, absolutely.
And so, what other shifts have you seen then in this last quarter of 2023 that are sort of paving this way? CSR, but also I think there was a discussion of like conversion rate even doubling on some of these big opportunity calls. Like, can you give us a bit of background in the how and the mental shift that you've seen around that?
Mhm.
Yeah, so a big thing where what we used to be doing when I first started this year, we were, providing estimates and doing this sort of thing, but we were more, let's email it. Okay, we'll do this. Some of them we were doing in person, but
Mm.
generally emailing. So one of the biggest things we're doing is providing the options in person, and then also, not emailing anything. Hey, let's show them to you. We'll provide 6 options, and kind of through your guys' direct training, basically, we've doubled our conversion rate as far as our average ticket, in a lot of cases quadruples, in an average week. So those few $100
Mm.
calls are now 1, 2, 3, 5, $20,000, add-on. So it's something where, as far as from a growth standpoint, filling our schedule rather than going to a service call, going in there, fixing something, running out the door real quick. Our tickets are getting a lot more, which is filling our schedule enough to where it's like, okay, well, now we're needing to grow because we need more installers, because we're getting full home rewires and panels and other things, where a lot of times, not just for the sales ticket itself, but from like a customer service standpoint, go in there and you fix one thing and you don't tell them about anything else. You're just like, well, on to the next one. You're really doing them a disservice, but also you're hurting yourself, as
Yeah.
far as your business growth, as far as profitability. I mean, it's a huge thing. And without that training, I mean, I wouldn't even be relatively close. So it's definitely something that's going to be an ongoing thing. And honestly, from a long-term perspective, the ongoing training help, whether you're a one-person company, even if I grew this thing to 10, it's something where you kind of need the training forever, because I mean, you don't necessarily need it, but the week-to-week group meetings and having the group chat that people can go in there at any point in time and have, a bunch of electricians that'll instantly respond. Hey, what do you guys think about this? Oh, boom, everyone's helping each other in there. But the weekly trainings for, the technicians, as far as the videos that you guys provide for, I get a brand new technician. We have one that's been here for 3 weeks. And actually this afternoon, we're going to sit down and say, hey, watch this video. Hey, this is kind of how we do the pricing, go through everything. Spend a couple hours on it on a weekly basis. We're going to have these trainings, but being able to key in, hey, Joe, I'm having this issue with this technician. He's having a hard time with verbiage on this, and just be able to have an instantaneous response and the best verbiage possible, to think, wow, I've got this big problem in a matter of 2 minutes. Oh, let me just solve that for you. It's huge. So
That's
I'm honored,
amazing.
man. Truly honored to be in your corner full time, man.
I'm not always full attention in the daily classes. Joe's always there, of course, helping with the
Mhm.
Q&A. But did I hear this right? Did you take your whole team out of the country for Christmas?
we did. So we went to and a couple people didn't make it because they've just been hired on since then. But yeah, pretty much we 6 of us went down there. We had the service tech install, etc. And then plus their wives and stuff. We all went down there for a Christmas break. So it was just kind of a gift back to me, like, hey, really appreciate where we've come from the start of this year. And I want, on a yearly basis, from a cost standpoint, it's something where it's like, it doesn't necessarily have to be right there, but I want to do a cool trip somewhere, once a year, somewhere around Christmas time, or if it's not that, it's going to be something good. If someone can't make it, if someone has something else going on, it's going to be just something, not necessarily giving back, but just say, hey, I really appreciate the help.
Mhm. I think it's a great thing that you're rewarding your staff, because at the end of the day, a lot of people view like, oh, well, the customer's the boss. Well, not necessarily. If your employees are respected and taken care of, they will take care of
Uh-oh. Did Joe pause or is it me?
you, keep using you. Something?
Oh, maybe it's me. Sorry about that, guys. Just a little bit of a
No,
sketch there. Keep going, Joe. You got it.
no, it's all good. It's just the moral of what I was trying to say is I love that you're taking care of your team, because your team is now more empowered to take care of your customer. When your customer is being taken care of at a higher level, they have more reason to keep using you, which means you can keep taking care of your team. And it's a cycle that repeats itself ethically and honorably. And I really respect that you're doing that.
It's massive. Thank you, Dan, so
Thank you.
much for joining us, man. Any closing comments or advice, anything you want to say to any electricpreneurs out there to help them on their journeys, brother?
My biggest thing is when I started this, I was thinking, I'm going to slowly grow this and I'm going to do this. Well, realistically, from the very first day that I started this company, I should have just said, hey, I need this help. I'm willing to invest this amount of money. What can you help me with? That should have been my number one step because, and I did to some extent, but I really should have just dived right in, say, hey, help me structure this from day one, because the advice on a daily basis from just getting those roots in right off the bat, it's going to be a really key thing, because from a one-man show to a 20-man show, no matter what, everyone's going to benefit. It doesn't matter who you are, what business you are, the benefit there is going to be massive. On a weekly basis, I learn something new no matter what. And it feels like, oh, I've got a good grip on this. There's someone in there that says something, and like, nope, that's a very good learning experience. So
You know what, man? It's
Awesome,
been
man.
massive having you. I'm so glad you're back, and we're all learning from you as well. Thank you so much for your part in this series. I'm going to put you back in the waiting room, brother. We're going to finish off this podcast, and I hope you're able to stick around and say goodbye to us. But otherwise, for the purpose of this podcast, thank you so much, Dan. We'll talk to you soon.
right, thank you.
It's really been a pleasure, brother.
All right, Joe. Oh my God.
I know, having a quadrupled average ticket, having a doubled average closing ratio. I mean, those are some serious high hitting awards right there.
It's massive, man. And we've gone long enough in this one, so we got to wrap it up. Is there anything else you wanted to highlight from that interview for the people listening here?
I would say the fact that he seems to be the individual that is a perpetual student. He doesn't seem arrogant. He doesn't seem like the kind of person that knows it all. Rather, it's what can I learn? How can I serve? And those two mentalities, when working in tandem, create the biggest wins, because it's a contagious mentality. When you surround yourself with people that want to learn and want to grow and want to serve, everyone benefits, everyone you come in contact with. So I think he's beyond deserving of what he has done, and I'm incredibly proud to be in his corner.
100%. And I'm like mind blown. I want to tie this back to the series and crank out a couple of action items. And I think you just did the first one. Honestly, listen to the man with his demand. Like, that's crazy. All from leveraging networks, and a piece that we didn't exactly articulate, but still falls under that organic marketing umbrella. Being able to go and just have conversations in these groups and recommend others to gain favor and build a relationship. That's remarkably powerful. And we want to be leveraging that in our $1 million launch first year as well. Massive piece. As an all-star, though, did you have something in particular, or do you want me to take this one?
If you got something top of mind, by all means.
I loved a couple of things here in this interview. I mean, he gave us his top three, right? But we already took action on the pricing.
Yep.
Okay? And just where we're at, I feel like it's fitting to wrap this loop method into this. It sounds like, from what I heard Dan and his last advice, that could have been the all-star action, to get help and get this framework and not try to reinvent the wheels, so that we can actually see this growth in our first year and just knock it out of the park.
I would agree with that 100%, because a lot of times people have this mentality that they want to do everything themselves, but really it's many hands make light work. And if you have someone that's able to say, you know what, every percent of energy you're putting into is more effective when you're applying it this way, you spend less time spinning tires and more time cashing checks.
Oh man, that's huge. So on the next episode, episode 240, we're going to get right into that, into this loop method, some of that structure, and unravel it as soon as simply as we can, excuse my stutter, but really trying to create that repeatable business through repeatable transactions with repeatable customers. How to identify, qualify, and make this thing last. And Dan's been a fine example of that. Joe, you ready to wrap this thing up?
I'm ready when you are, brother.
Gosh, this has been another incredible episode of Electricpreneur Secrets, the electrician's podcast, where we interviewed Dan Totten, and he taught us his secrets on how to master sales, simplify pricing, and deliver premium level electrical service. We're going to see you guys again on the next one.
Can't wait to see you soon. Take care.